World Rugby has already screwed up the Rugby World Cup. Yes, I know. What are you thinking, Luke? Like, what do you mean World Rugby screwed up the World Cup? It hasn't even happened. I know it hasn't happened. We all know it hasn't happened. We all know it's coming, though. And with it coming, what we need to discuss is what has happened within World Rugby to screw up this World Cup before it even began. The big thing I'm going to be talking about today is the draw of the Rugby World Cup. Now, for all of those that are going to call me a sourpuss for pretty much saying that I'm doing this because New Zealand's on the harder side of the pool and Aussie and England have the easier runs in, that's not the reason. If New Zealand was on the easy side of the pool, I'd still be disappointed that this has happened and that this has occurred, because when you're talking about a Rugby World Cup, you want the best tournament possible, and I feel like we aren't getting that, potentially. And especially when we talk about a World Cup final, you may not potentially be getting the best game in the World Cup final or the two best teams, and that's when we really start to have issues. So I guess to start off with, we need to understand where World Rugby has screwed up to kind of let this happen, and we've got to talk about the process of teams ending up in bands and then ending up in pools. So if you didn't know, 12 of the 20 teams qualified automatically by finishing in the top 3 places for their Rugby World Cup pool in 2019. These 12 teams were South Africa, New Zealand, England, Wales, Ireland, France, Australia, Japan, Scotland, Argentina, Fiji, and Italy. Now, what happens is those 12 teams get put into a bands because they've automatically qualified for this year's World Cup. So for the 2023 World Cup. Now, the bands have to be calculated at some point, and what World Rugby decided to do is do the draw at a later pace, but take the bands from where the teams were ranked at the start of 2020. So the 1st of January in 2020 was when these bands were made. So the top 4 teams in the rankings at that time were in the first band. 5 to 8 were then in the second band, and 9 to 12 in the third. When you break this down at the time, in band 1 we had the South Africans, New Zealand, England, and Wales. In band 2 we had Ireland, France, Australia, and Japan. And finally, in band 3, we had Scotland, Argentina, Fiji, and Italy. Now, Japan, coming off their heights of their World Cup in 2019, as we can see, squeezed into band 2. Wales, the biggest movers if we were to redo the bands right now. So this is where it kind of gets impacted, because Ireland and France are in band 2 originally. Now we're up in band 1. So that has meant that Ireland and France will end up in the same pool as South Africa and New Zealand. But if we did the bands today, it would be Ireland, France, New Zealand, South Africa. Band 2 would be Scotland, England, Australia, Argentina. And band 3 would be the struggling Welsh, Japan, Italy, and Fiji. Now, looking into this a bit deeper, we can run into, I guess, the pools and see where those 3 teams have ranked. So band 4 and 5 of the teams have qualified. Obviously, that happens. It doesn't matter when that happens, how they qualify and what pools they go into. It's a random draw. It's not such of, I guess, importance when that draw takes place and when those teams get put into pools. The first 3 bands obviously do. So now looking at it, if we look at Pool A, which has New Zealand, France, and Italy, we have the 3rd ranked team, the 2nd ranked team, and the 12th ranked team. In Pool B, we have South Africa, Ireland, and Scotland, which are now the 4th best team in the world, the top best team in the world, and Scotland, who are 5th best team in the world. So 3 top 5 teams in one pool. We then go to Pool C, where we had Wales, who were band 1 when we originally did this draw, Australia, and Fiji. So Wales are now ranked 9th, Australia are 7th, and Fiji are 14th. And finally, we look at Pool D, where we've got England, Japan, and Argentina. England are ranked 6th, Japan are ranked 10th, and Argentina are ranked 8th. So we can see our clear top pools are A and B. And then this is the issue that's everyone coming up with about the hard pool and the hard side, because in the end, winner of Pool A plays runner-up of Pool B, winner of Pool B plays runner-up of Pool A in the quarterfinals. So an easier draw for C and D. I'm not too bothered about that. It's more the fact, as a New Zealander, I'm not bothered because I expect to beat everyone. Opinion piece now. We're into the opinion zone. I feel bad for someone like Ireland and France, who for the past 4 years have worked their asses off to get to this position and be the best 2 teams in the world and not have an advantage for that. Now, I totally understand you can't do the draw the day before the World Cup. But saying that, there are a couple of key points here. The 2019 World Cup. The draw took place on May 10th, 2017 in Japan. This was roughly 863 days before the World Cup, not 1,346 days that from January 1st, where they took those first band rankings, till the World Cup. We look at 2015, another prime example. It's done in December in 2012 in London, after the end of year internationals, which finished up on December 1st. So from there, the 12 automatic qualifiers from 2011 were allocated to their respective bands based on rankings. When you totaled that up between the days, it was 1,021 days. However, the timing of the draw drew criticism due to a long period between the draw occurring and the commencement of the tournament, 3 years. By the time of the pool match between England and Wales, Pool A contained second, third and fourth ranked teams in the world, as Australia, England and Wales were all in the pool. Then England obviously eliminated at pool stage at their home World Cup. Even Warren Gatland, the Wales coach, was questioning the draw and the issue. A reminder, it was 1,021 days compared to 1,346 days. The chief executive of World Rugby at the time, Brent Gosper, subsequently acknowledged criticism, saying we will look at this next time to see if it's possible to make the draw closer to the tournament. So they knew they did it wrong in 2015 for the 2015 World Cup. They then fixed it for the 2019 World Cup, and then they screwed it royally up for the 2023 World Cup. Now, I understand COVID, they were worried about internationals taking place, what's going to happen. But to me, it's just typical, absolutely dumbfoundedness by World Rugby yet again. A bunch of old guys sitting around the boardroom deciding that 3.5 years before a World Cup takes place, we're going to do the draw based on these bands. Like, not even did they do the draw, the full draw, just select the bands. Like, to me, it's just preposterous, as Stephen A. Smith would say. It's not going to ruin the World Cup. It won't. It's obviously, you look at England, you look at Australia, probably licking their lips. It gives teams like Japan and Argentina a go to make it through. And whoever comes out of this World Cup will deservedly be champion, even if they're from those pools, England and Australia, because at some point they have to beat South Africa, they have to beat Ireland, they have to beat France, they have to beat All Blacks. They have to beat the teams to win the World Cup. It's what you've got to do. You've got to win games. But it just leaves a little sour note that World Rugby were able to absolutely royally fuck this up after they'd already taken their own criticism, that they'd understood they'd made a mistake. They then went back on it and made a double mistake and then blamed it on COVID. Now, I know lots of things happened during COVID. I get it. But to me, I just want an insurance policy for next few World Cups that this isn't going to happen again. It's not hard to do. Not hard. You can't tell me you can't organise the Rugby World Cup in 2 years with the draw done then. 2 years, bang. 2 years, 2 years before the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup should get drawn and should be based on the bands at that time. You've locked in your place for the Rugby World Cup. That was your advantage from the last World Cup, was that you finished in the top three in your pool and you locked in your place. It shouldn't be that you hold the advantage like Japan did at the last World Cup, where they had a really good World Cup, so now they're up there in the bands. Like, it just, to me, makes very little sense. But as you can see, I'm highly frustrated by this, but I will not let this get to me. We're going to have the greatest World Cup of all time, I think. One of the best World Cups we may ever see. The most competitive World Cup, ideally. So yeah, let me know if you think World Rugby did F this up, and, is there a better way to do it? Should we wait till 2 years out? Let me know all of that good stuff. Comment, like and subscribe down below if you enjoyed this video. For now, I've been Luke from the Sports Booth. Thank you for joining me. See you later.